let me tell you a story, a myth from the very edge of time, about the one who stands between absolute zero and the very first flame. This is the tale of the Red Specter, the architect of the cosmic cycle.
So listen, really listen. Because before there was anything, there was, well, a whole lot of nothing. A silence so deep, so absolute, it was its own kind of existence. And right there in that silence, a story was waiting to be told. A story of ice and of fire.
Our story begins in an age of perfect, unmoving order. An age they called the Silent Rime. This was Ginnungagap, and you have to understand, it wasn't just empty space. It was a state of being. Kind of like a universe held inside a single, flawless crystal of ice. Everything locked in its place. Unchanging, eternal. A silent, perfect stasis.
And right there, at its heart, stood a guardian, a being made of pure law, an arbiter. His very existence was the anchor holding the entire cosmos together. His job? It was simple. Keep things still. Hold back the tide of chaos that wanted to tear it all apart.
But here's the thing about perfect order. This iron rime, it was also a perfect prison. I mean, in a world where nothing ever changes, nothing can ever grow. There's no life. The whole universe was basically just on pause, waiting for a thaw that might just never come. And then, from somewhere way beyond that frozen void, the one thing that could shatter all that ice finally arrived. A spark. Just a single ember, you know? Born from the realm of the fire giants, it journeyed across the void. They called it the Crimson Spark, and it touched the Arbiter. In that one single moment, everything changed. This wasn't just an attack, it was an infection, a transformation. It was like a seed of pure chaos had been planted in the very heart of absolute order. The cold, logical Arbiter, well, he became something else. Where there was once only the unwavering law of ice, now there was the burning, unpredictable chaos of fire. The sentinel of stasis was now the bearer of flame. He wasn't just one thing anymore. He was two, locked in a war inside his own soul. And because its guardian was now transformed, the perfect stillness of Ginnungagap was broken. Forever. The Red Specter was born, and he now carried the burden of that primal fire, a power that could forge whole new worlds, sure, but could also burn the old ones right down to ash.
So this new being, this walking paradox of ice and fire, now had to answer to the powers that ran the old world. I mean, what happens, right? When a force for total transformation runs up against a system that absolutely refuses to bend. Yeah, that was the trial he was about to face with the Aesir, the old gods.
And this is where it all comes to a head. See, the Aesir only understood the iron rime, their unbending, rigid law. They looked at the Specter, and all they could see was a threat, the chaos. They just couldn't grasp his new nature, this fusion of two opposite forces. And so, their verdict? It was simple, it was absolute. Exile. So he was cast out, and while he was wandering the Nine Realms completely alone, he had this epiphany. He realized that the suffocating order of the gods, their complete refusal to change, was just another kind of destruction. It was a slow death by stagnation, and it was every bit as dangerous as the mindless fire of chaos. Both extremes, they only led to ruin.
So now he was truly alone, right? Rejected by both sides of his own nature. And it was right there, in that solitude, that he finally forged a new purpose.
He thought back on his journey. He'd been the absolute of ice, and he'd been touched by the absolute of fire, and he saw the fatal flaw in both of them. So he made a choice. He rejected this false idea that it had to be one or the other. He chose to walk a path right down the middle, not as a guardian of one or a servant of the other, but as the architect of their balance. He finally accepted his fate. He would wield the Crimson Spark. He would bring that fire to the old frozen world. But his goal, it wasn't destruction, it was purification. He had to burn away the rot, the stagnation, so that something new, something vital, could finally have a chance to grow. And so we come to the end of his long journey, and, really, the beginning of his true purpose. This is what he became. Not some monster, not a destroyer. He was the necessary gardener. His new job was to tend the cosmos itself,
using fire as his tool to, prune away the dead wood and make sure the whole forest could thrive.
Destruction wasn't the end goal. Not at all. In his hands, it was just the beginning. The fire creates the ash, and it's the ash that provides the fertile ground where the next age can be born.
The cycle of death and rebirth was finally in motion, and the red specter was its silent, eternal guardian. The same being who was once the arbiter of perfect stillness now watches over the endless dance of change, guarding that fragile moment where ash finally gives way to new life.
And that, well, it leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? This ancient story seems to be telling us that for new things to be born, old things have to pass away. So the real question for us is, what frozen, stagnant parts of our own world, or even of ourselves, do we need to be willing to let burn?